Hey guys, welcome to the Smart Venture Podcast. In each episode, we're going to have conversations with some of the top investors, superstar founders, as well as well-known tech company executives in Silicon Valley. We'll have a coffee chat with them to learn their way of thinking and actionable tips on how they build or invest in a successful company. Before we start our show today, I want to make sure the listener, aka you, understand that everything a person say on the podcast only reflects hers or his own opinion, not the show or the company they work at. Our guest today is the CEO of LG Technology Ventures. LG Technology Ventures manages over $400 million of fund assets and invests in early-stage information technology, automotive, manufacturing, life sciences, and other areas. Prior to that, he worked as the vice president and general manager of Samsung Venture America. His name is DongSu Kim. This episode is the first part of the conversation with DongSu. We'll focus on how DongSu started his career in tech and investing. Welcome to the show, DongSu.
Hi, Grace. It's a pleasure.
To start off the show, can you tell us about how you grew up and how did you get into venture?
Sure. So I had a little bit of a different background than most people, I'd say. So again, I was born in Korea, but my father was a diplomat. So from very early age, I lived abroad, mostly in Latin America because my father speaks Spanish. So I lived in Chile for 3 years, a couple of years in Ecuador, in Panama, and Korea in between. So I moved around a lot as a kid, and then they sent me to a boarding school for high school, right, in the U.S. And then from then on, I got most of my education in the U.S. So even when I was young, my parents thought I should get a good engineering education. Like good engineering education, I can survive anywhere in the world. So I ended up going to Caltech and my undergraduate there. I studied applied physics and then moved on to Princeton for my master's and PhD. And so that was my childhood. So if I continue, then afterwards I joined after getting my PhD, I joined Samsung Electronics as a researcher. So my PhD was mostly in compound semiconductor space. So I was it was mostly a compound semiconductor. Of course, you can make lasers, detectors, and all that, but at that time, it was most of the application for compound semiconductors were for fiber optic communications. So again, I joined the fiber optics group within Samsung and did R&D for about four or 5 years. What happened at that time was so again, I joined Samsung in 1997. But and things were great. 2000, there was a big fiber boom. Everybody was, just laying down fiber optic network, and internet was booming and all that. But as we all know, everything crashed in 2001. So Samsung decided to exit that business at that time. So at that time, it really gave me an opportunity to think really a lot about my career. And I really wanted to get into more business side of things. So I decided to change my career a little bit. So at 2003, I did some technology alliance work, just looking for R&D partners. So I was meeting with R&D centers in the U.S., but universities and also startups. So that's when I started working side by side with the corporate venture capital team. And at that time, that work looked really interesting. I mean, it was a good place to both leverage my technical background, but also learn a lot about business. And so I I went and talked to the head of the corporate venture capital team at Samsung at the time and said, "Hey, I really do this. What can I do to join your team?" And somehow he really liked me. So he led me onto the team. So I joined that team at 2005, and that's how my career at corporate venture capital started.
As you mentioned, you studied physics back in time. You went to Caltech and Princeton for your PhD. It requires a lot of intelligence and curiosity to achieve that. How do you develop the interest in science when you're younger? And how do you educate yourself to have the scientific mindset?
So, again, I think the fact that I studied physics first as my undergrad really helped me a lot because you get a very good understanding of the fundamental science. So afterwards, no matter what kind of technology that you encounter, you can always start from first principles and try to understand how it works. So I think that was very good. Also, the fact that from my childhood, I had to adopt a different kind of environment. So I had to train myself at an early age that I had to adopt different ideas and learn different things. Really helped me out, when I was encountering new type of companies or technologies, right? And the fact that I'm just naturally a curious person, so I like learning about different technologies and also businesses. So that also helped me out a lot when I was meeting new companies.
Yeah. So what was the skill that you learned early on in your career that's really helpful later on?
Yeah. So I think I already mentioned some of that, like curiosity and all that. But again, my advice to the younger people would be you really need to learn the fundamentals, right? Don't be too impatient to learn about certain specific areas like venture capital or finance or something, right? I mean, if you just get a very good education on the fundamental science and also economics and how things work, maybe even like humanities and literature and all that, it really provides a very solid fundamental to what you're going to do, whatever you decide to do later, right? So, and then once you develop the fundamental, you can acquire the specific skills required for a certain type of, whatever you want to do, right? Certain type of jobs. So I think it really suited me very well. The fact that I did get educated in those more basic science and more fundamental areas, and that I later decided to get into this profession. Also, throughout my career, the fact that I also worked at different departments. So I did R&D, some planning and alliance and all that. So that also, diverse experience really helps you out, especially in the venture capital business, because again, I mean, you have to be a generalist. You have to be a generalist, right? You have to have good understanding of many different disciplines. But at the same time, I mean, you need to also know how to learn fast, right? How to increase your understanding about a new technology or a new business. So that's, I mean, I think that's what helped me quite a bit.
Yeah, totally. Having curiosity, mastering the fundamentals, and having diverse set of experiences are some great qualities to have. What were some actions that you took to actively making yourself stand out and becoming more competitive than your peers?
So compared to my peer, I mean, I think a lot of people that I encounter in my line of work come from many different backgrounds, right? So I see ex-entrepreneurs or consultants or investment bankers. At the end of the day, I mean, no matter what background you come from, it's really about how well-rounded of a person you are, right? You need a good understanding of many different things, and also the ability to learn fast. That's a key a trait that you need to stand out from other people. And also a lot of it is just instinct, right? You hear a pitch, you may not understand 100% about the technology or that particular business, right? You can never know more than the entrepreneur, because obviously for an entrepreneur, that's his area of expertise, and that's what he lives and breathes every day, right? So if you can just develop a feel for things, so without understanding 100%, if you know how to ask the right questions and develop a sense of whether this will work or not, I think that's a very important skill that you need.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned that you started out working in R&D, then you talked to the right department, transition into venture. Can you tell us more about the career switch? How do you convince the investing team to give you this role? What was the first investment you've made back in time? What were some challenges you were facing after getting into investing?
Yeah. So that's actually a very multifaceted question. I think maybe just going through my first investment, and then maybe we'll answer a lot of those questions. So again, first company that I did was a company called Cybeam. It was a company that was using 60 gigahertz, what's called millimeter wave. Technology, wireless technology, and they were trying to replace the HDMI cables with a wireless product. So again, these HDMI cables are now everywhere. This was back in 2005. Back then, the cables were actually quite expensive. These were, some cables were selling for like, even the meter ones were $30 to even like $100 for very long HDMI cables. So the company was trying to replace that with a wireless protocol. So and again, and this HDMI cables actually you have to be able to handle very high bandwidth, because you get a lot. HDMI cables basically handles uncompressed video, which is by nature is just very high bandwidth. So and again, the millimeter wave is the best technology to do that, because it just you can get very, very high bit rates transmitting through the millimeter wave. Actually, some of the 5G standard right now takes advantage of millimeter wave because of that really high bandwidth capacity. So at that time, I thought it was a great idea, right? I mean, the company the team was great. Back then, if you look at a typical cable, it had like a big mess of cables connecting to a cable. I don't know if you, in the early 2000s, if you own a high-end TV, then you had all these set-top boxes and videos and all that connecting to your TV. And so you get this spider web of cables, right? So again, if you can replace all of that to wireless, I thought it would be great. And so again, so I went there, met with the company, really liked it, convinced the right people within Samsung that we really need to look into this. Obviously, having this capability will, make Samsung's products a lot better, and blah blah blah, right? So finally, did the investment again, and through that. And at first it looked great. I mean, the team was great. The technology, they were meeting technology milestones, and also it had a very good investor base. It had you had NEA and Foundation Capital and all the right investors in that. So I really thought at USVP. So I really thought nothing could go wrong with this company. And also first investment that for most venture capitalists, you kind of fall in love with it because there's nothing like a first time, right? You just you get so excited, you think it's the best company in the world, and but after investment you realize, hey, it's really tough. I mean, although the company had great technology, it just again, it was very hard to bring the cost down, because it was such a complicated technology that it took. It was really a lot of fancy components going into that. So again, at the end of the day, they couldn't get the cost down enough. At the same time, the price of the HDMI cables started dropping and all that. So the company eventually failed. And it was acquired by, I think, Silicon Image at a very low valuation, and because we went in very early stage at the Series A, so we we lost money on the deal. So so it was a very good lesson for me, actually. People say you learn more from your failures than your success. So it was really good. So that was my first deal.
Yeah, you call it a failure, but the company still got acquired, right? On some level, it is not necessarily a bad outcome. Curious from this experience, what do you learn? What would you do differently? When it comes to picking an investment, if there is a famous investment firm invest in that company, it gives people an illusion that it's most likely going to be successful. But in reality, it may not be the case. How did this experience shape your perspective on investing?
What would I do differently? Again, I think it's not so much of what would I do differently, because investing is just hard, right? Venture capital investing is just hard. No matter, even if you do everything right, you will have companies that you will invest in companies that fail, right? So, and a lot of the problems that you run into, you don't necessarily foresee. So you just gotta accept the fact that there are a lot of uncertainties in the business. That you try to check all the boxes and find, and cover, especially while you're doing your due diligence, then you want to make sure that you look at everything that is needed. But at the same time, you just got to accept the fact that, hey, no matter how hard you try, it's just going to fail. It could fail, right? Of course, you have enough ones if you have enough ones that succeeds, then again, you will have a great career. But you just got to accept the fact that there are a lot of uncertainties.
For sure. You started your investing career at Samsung. It's a foreign company. How did you start the network and establish the brand in Silicon Valley? What were some challenges you were facing when you're first starting out?
Yeah. So there are some personal challenges, and there's also a challenge associated with being a corporate venture capital. So personal challenge was somebody, who was not a Silicon Valley insider. So I actually, when I joined Samsung, I moved back to Korea, and then after joining the venture capital team, I moved back out to Silicon Valley in late 2009. So again, it was so I didn't have the network. I didn't know anybody, right? It was and then a lot of the venture capital business is done through the network, right? And it's who you know and all that. So I didn't have that. So I think it was first year or so that was really hard, right? That I wasn't sourcing the right deals because I didn't know enough people who can introduce me to the deals. And even deals that I sourced wasn't really good. And if I do find a good deal, then sometimes they wouldn't let me in those deals because I was just unbetter, right? And then added to that, the challenge of being a corporate venture capital, there's some people who have very negative views about corporate venture capital, especially back then. Now it's gotten a lot better, but back then there were a lot of corporate venture capital who didn't have the expertise, who took a long time in decision making, who wanted these very onerous side letter terms in terms of either collaboration or M&A right of first refusal and so forth, and it's just very difficult to work with, right? So because of that, then that kind of it makes it hard for you to get into the best deal. So that's some of the early challenges that I encountered.
You had the physics and engineering education from Caltech and Princeton. Even in the Silicon Valley job market, you still have a strong advantage to join a firm or a tech company that excites you based in the U.S. What were the reasons made you decided to stay in the firm?
Yeah, no, and so at the end of the day, I really liked learning about the technology. Again, it's this is the best thing about venture capital business is you learn something every day. Every company you meet, there's something that you learn, and not just that, they're eager to teach you because obviously that's how nobody will invest unless you understand what they do. So so you learn a lot. So that's one thing that I really like. And the other aspect is that I really like helping extraordinary people. And in my mind, most entrepreneurs are really extraordinary. I mean, they're otherwise they wouldn't be an entrepreneur. It's such a hard thing to do. So that's what really wanted me to kept me in this business. And I think that in the end helped me a lot. Helped me overcome some of the challenges that I'm experiencing. Mainly because if you're learning and you know more and more, you know, obviously, I mean, the entrepreneurs wants to receive investment from people who know about what you're doing, right? So if they feel like they understand your technology, if they feel like they understand your model, then even during the pitch session, it clicks. So entrepreneurs feel that, wow, this guy understands what I'm trying to do, so he's more likely to try to receive your investment, right? Than somebody who they feel like they don't get it. So that's one thing that helped. And the fact that I like helping them, and then after a few deals, the word gets around. Actually, they appreciate, entrepreneurs do appreciate a lot what VCs can provide to them. And also it's a small community. The entrepreneurs talk to each other, so they say, oh yeah, I received money from Samsung or LG, and then DongSu was on this deal, and he really helped me out. He's a great guy. Then that goes a long way. That not only into getting into some of the good deals, but also they come to you because they want to work with you. So that really helped me overcome some of the early challenges that
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Helping startups and creating that reputation is really important. When it comes to making good investment, can you walk us through how you pick up a company to invest in? What do you see in that market? How do you do the due diligence? There must be some similar company that are in the same space. Why did you pick company A instead of company B?
Yeah, so there's one company that I really stands out when I look back on some of the deals I did. So one is a company called Pure Storage. So it's a public company now. It does basically enterprise storage systems. And back then, I mean, all storage systems were built with hard drives. And then when SSDs, from the NAND flash drives started, the product was starting to get available. Obviously, the SSD started penetrating the consumer side first, right? So people are getting thumb drives and all that. And obviously, Samsung being one of the biggest manufacturer of NAND, they really wanted to increase the market. They really wanted to get into the enterprise IT side of storage. So we were looking for a lot of companies who were building these storage systems out of SSDs. So I ran into Pure Storage. What really liked about them is that although they were a building hardware, they had a very good software team. So they are building these systems with a lot of these software features to manage and monitor the storage appliance. And I think a lot of IT customers usually, they really like that. It's managing IT systems. It's a very complicated thing, and you don't want things to go wrong. I mean, there's a very serious problem if your data center goes down. So they want to monitor things very carefully and make sure that things don't fail and all that. And so and it's usually, I mean, hardware. Sometimes, I mean, all hardware sometimes fails. So if you have the software to manage some of the hardware failures, so the system as a whole stays up, then that means that's huge. So again, I think I really like that aspect of that company. I mean, obviously there were other competitors who had better hardware system. I mean, companies like Violin Memory comes into my mind. But in the end, I thought Pure Storage was probably more likely to succeed. So we invested in that. Pure was using Samsung's SSDs quite a bit at the time, and together they grew. And Pure ended up going public. So as an investor, Samsung made money, but at the same time, the entire ecosystem based on SSDs really grew during that time. So it really that part of Samsung's business grew quite a bit also. So it was strategically very good. As an investor, we made money, and the company did well. So it was just happy ending for everybody.
All right. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Smart Venture Podcast. In the next episode, we'll focus on how DongSu navigated the investing career in both Korea and Silicon Valley. Don't forget to come back on Wednesday for the second part of the conversation with DongSu. If you like it, please leave us a quick review and hit subscribe so you don't miss any tips from the experts. If you want to receive our updates, please leave your email at smartventurepod.com. If you want to connect with me, all my socials are at Grace Gong GG. Visit LinkedIn, it's just Grace Gong. I'd love to connect with you and let me know your thought about the show. Now you can also listen to Smart Venture Podcast on YouTube. Go to smartventurepod.com, click the YouTube link on the top banner. Don't forget to hit subscribe and smash the like button. See you next time.